The fog rolled in thick and relentless that autumn evening, blanketing the small town of Marrow's Hollow in a shroud so dense it seemed to swallow sound itself. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the streetlights flickered weakly, their glow barely piercing the mist. It was the kind of night where the world felt smaller, as if the boundaries of reality had contracted, leaving only the immediate, the tangible, and the faintly ominous. For 17-year-old Clara Hensley, it was the kind of night that made her wish she'd stayed home. Clara lived on the edge of town, where the houses gave way to sprawling fields and dense woods that locals called the Blackthorn. The woods were a place of whispered legends, stories of lost travelers, and strange lights that flickered among the trees. Most dismissed them as folklore, but Clara had always felt a prickle of unease when she passed the gnarled oaks at the forest's edge. Tonight, though, she had no choice but to cut through the blackthorn. Her best friend Lila had texted her an hour ago, frantic, begging her to come to the old mill on the far side of the woods. Lila's messages were cryptic, a jumble of typos and half-sentences. "Clara, please, I'm at the mill. Something's wrong, I can't..." The message cut off, and Lila hadn't responded since. Clara pulled her jacket tighter, the chill seeping through the thin fabric as she stepped off the paved road and onto the narrow path leading into the blackthorn. Her sneakers sank slightly into the muddy ground, and the fog seemed to thicken with every step, muffling the crunch of leaves underfoot. She clutched her phone, its screen dimmed to save battery, and used its flashlight to guide her way. The beam cut a weak path through the mist, illuminating twisted branches that looked like skeletal hands reaching out from the darkness. She tried calling Lila again, but the signal was gone, replaced by a static hiss that made her stomach twist. Marrow's Hollow was a dead zone for cell service on the best of days, and the fog only made it worse. Clara told herself Lila was probably fine. Maybe she'd had a fight with her boyfriend, Ethan, or gotten spooked by one of the old mill's creaky floorboards. The mill was a relic from the town's lumber days, abandoned decades ago, but still a magnet for teenagers daring each other to explore its crumbling walls. Clara had been there once, years ago, and remembered the way the air inside felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. As she walked deeper into the woods, the silence grew oppressive, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the trees or the distant hoot of an owl. Her breath fogged in front of her, mingling with the mist, and she quickened her pace, driven by a growing sense of urgency. Lila wasn't the type to panic over nothing. If she was at the mill, something was genuinely wrong. The path opened into a small clearing, and the mill loomed ahead, its silhouette barely visible through the fog. The building was a hulking mass of weathered wood and rusted metal, its windows shattered and its roof sagging like a tired old man. Clara's flashlight swept over the entrance, a gaping hole where the door had once been, and she hesitated. The air here felt different, colder, heavier, as if the fog itself was pressing down on her. "Lila?" she called, her voice sounding small and swallowed by the mist. No answer. She stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest, and peered into the darkness of the mill. The interior was a maze of shadows, the floor littered with broken glass and splintered wood. She took a tentative step inside, her flashlight catching glints of rusted machinery and cobwebs that hung like tattered curtains. "Lila, it's Clara. Are you here?" Her voice echoed faintly, bouncing off the walls. Still no response. She moved deeper into the mill, her sneakers crunching on debris, and tried to shake the feeling that she was being watched. The fog had followed her inside, curling around the door frame like ghostly fingers, and the temperature seemed to drop with every step. She found Lila's jacket first. It was draped over a rusted saw blade, the bright red fabric unmistakable even in the dim light. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Lila never went anywhere without that jacket. It was a favorite, a gift from her mum before she passed away. Clara reached out, her fingers brushing the soft cotton, and noticed something wet on the sleeve. She angled her flashlight and froze. The stain was dark, almost black in the low light, but the metallic scent told her it was blood. Panic surged through her, sharp and electric. She spun around, sweeping her flashlight across the room, half expecting to see Lila crumpled in a corner. Instead, she saw something else. A figure, standing in the far corner, barely visible through the fog. He was tall and thin, his outline blurred, as if it were part of the mist itself. Clara's mouth went dry, and she took a step back, her foot catching on a loose board. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The figure didn't move, didn't speak. It just stood there, its head tilted slightly, as if studying her. Clara's grip tightened on her phone, and she raised the flashlight higher, trying to get a better look. The beam caught the edge of a pale face, eyes glinting like polished glass. And then the figure was gone, swallowed by the shadows. Clara's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to run, to bolt back through the woods and never look back. But Lila was still out there. She couldn't leave without knowing what had happened. She forced herself to move forward, following the path the figure had taken, her flashlight shaking in her hand. The mill seemed to grow darker with every step, the fog thicker, the air colder. She passed rusted machinery and broken crates, her senses on high alert for any sound, any movement. Then she heard it, a low, guttural moan coming from the back of the mill. It wasn't Lila's voice, but it was human, or at least it sounded human. Clara's legs felt like lead, but she pushed forward, following the sound. The moan came again, louder this time, and she rounded a corner to find a small room, its walls stained with mold and water damage. In the center of the room, slumped against the wall, was a man. He was older, maybe in his 40s, with a gaunt face and hollow eyes. His clothes were tattered, soaked through with rain and something darker. Blood, Clara realized, as her flashlight caught the red stains on his shirt. He was clutching his side, where a deep gash oozed steadily, and his breathing was shallow, labored. "Help," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Please, help me." Clara's first instinct was to run, but something held her in place. The man looked half dead, his skin pale and clammy, his eyes wide with fear. "What happened?" she asked, kneeling beside him, her voice shaking. "Who did this to you?" He tried to speak, but his words were slurred, incoherent. He's still here," he managed, his eyes darting to the shadows. "The one with the knife. He's not right." Clara's blood ran cold. She remembered the figure in the corner, the glint of those unnatural eyes. "Who?" she pressed, her voice urgent. "Who's here?" The man's eyes fluttered, and he slumped further, his head lolling to the side. "Run," he whispered, his voice fading. "Run before he finds you." Clara's heart was in her throat. She stood, her flashlight sweeping the room. But there was nothing. No figure, no sound. Just the oppressive weight of the fog and the dying man at her feet. She backed away, her mind racing. Lila's jacket, the blood, The man's warning, it was all too much. She needed to find Lila, but she also needed to get out, to get help. She turned to leave, but a sound stopped her. A soft, deliberate creak from the floorboards behind her. She spun around, her flashlight catching the edge of a shadow moving fast, too fast toward her. She stumbled back, tripping over a piece of debris, and fell hard, her phone skittering across the floor. The flashlight beam spun wildly, illuminating fragments of the room. A rusted blade, a pile of rotting wood. And then, for a split second, a face. It wasn't human, not entirely. The eyes were too large, too reflective, like those of a predator caught in headlights. The mouth was a thin, cruel slash, twisted into something that might have been a smile. Clara scrambled to her feet, her breath coming in sharp gasps, and ran, not caring where she was going, just needing to get away. The mill was a labyrinth, its corridors twisting and turning, the fog making it impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. She could hear footsteps now, uneven and rapid, echoing through the darkness. They weren't the heavy, deliberate steps of a normal person. They were erratic, almost animalistic, like something was loping after her. Clara's lungs burned, her legs ached, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. She burst out of the mill and into the woods, the fog thicker than ever, the trees closing in around her. The footsteps were still behind her, closer now, and she could hear a low, guttural sound, like a growl mixed with a laugh. She veered off the path, hoping to lose her pursuer in the dense underbrush. But the ground was slick with mud, and she slipped, crashing to her knees. Her hands sank into the cold, wet earth, and for a moment, she was paralyzed. The fear so overwhelming, it threatened to swallow her whole. Then she saw it, a glint of metal in the fog, a blade catching the faint light of her phone, which lay a few feet away, its flashlight still on. The figure was close now, its outline distorted by the mist, but she could see the knife, its edge gleaming with malicious intent. Clara scrambled to her feet, grabbing a fallen branch as she did. It wasn't much, but it was something. She swung it wildly as the figure lunged, the branch connecting with something solid. There was a grunt, a stumble, and then the figure was on her, its weight pinning her to the ground. The knife flashed above her, and she screamed, thrashing with all her strength. In that moment, something changed. The fog seemed to shift, the air growing heavier, and a sound cut through the night, a low, resonant hum, like the vibration of a tuning fork. The figure froze, its head snapping to the side, as if hearing something Clara couldn't. Then, with a sudden, jerky movement, it stood and retreated into the fog, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Clara lay there, gasping, her body trembling with adrenaline. The hum faded, and the woods were silent again, save for the soft patter of rain through the trees. She didn't know how long she stayed there, too afraid to move, but eventually, she forced herself to stand. Her phone was still where it had fallen, its light cutting a weak path through the fog. She grabbed it and ran, not stopping, until she reached the edge of the Blackthorn, where the lights of Marrow's Hollow flickered in the distance. When she finally made it home, she collapsed against the door, her clothes soaked and her body bruised. Her parents were asleep, oblivious to the nightmare she'd just lived through. She didn't wake them. Instead, she locked every door, checked every window, and sat up all night, her phone clutched in her hand, waiting for the dawn. The next morning, Clara went to the police. She told them everything. Lila's text, the mill, The injured man, the figure with the knife. The police searched the Blackthorn and the mill, but they found nothing. No blood, no jacket, no man. Lila was at home, safe but shaken, claiming she'd never sent the text. Her phone had been off all night, and there was no record of the messages Clara had received. The police chalked it up to a prank, maybe a hacker, but Clara knew better. She'd seen the figure, felt its presence, heard that unnatural hum. For weeks, she couldn't sleep. The memory of those reflective eyes haunted her, and the hum seemed to linger in her ears, faint but persistent. She stopped going near the Blackthorn, avoided the mill, and kept her distance from the woods. But the questions never left her. Who or what had been in the mill that night? What had the man meant when he said, "He's not right"? And what was that hum, that strange, otherworldly sound that had saved her life? Months later, Clara found an old book in the town library, tucked away in a dusty corner. It was a collection of local legends, and one story caught her eye, a tale of the Blackthorn, of a creature that appeared in the fog, luring victims with false cries for help. The story called it the Hollow Man, a being that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite anything, feeding on fear and despair. The book mentioned a sound, a low hum that could drive the creature away, though no one knew why. Clara closed the book, her hands trembling. She didn't know if the Hollow Man was real, if the figure she'd seen was the same creature from the legend, or if it was something else entirely. But she knew one thing for certain. She'd never go back to the Blackthorn. Not at night, not in the fog, not ever. Some mysteries were better left unsolved. Some shadows better left undisturbed.